Alright, guys, disclaimers again. Sexism, racism, homophobia, ageism has passed, so... Oh, by the way, when I'm bantering about societal change, it is just brainstorming. I am not... really, it's not up to me to make the policies. Or maybe it is, but... there's no way in my lifetime it's ever going to be, changed to the extent that is going to fight back against the twisted goals of the demographers and scapegoating us all just to fight against the racial, ethnic imbalances. How fucking messed up. Anyways. But there is little evidence that women's behavior has changed. Thus, for a dozen years, from 1973 to 1985, the TFR stayed frozen, almost solid, undulating only in a tight band from 1.840 to 1.738. It is the first time in our history that there has been so little movement in the TFR ever such a long period of time. In other words, so far, there has been talk about working women losing out on their chances for motherhood, but little change in the rates of women actually bearing children, at least seen through the lens of the TFR. Similarly, after all the discussion about a new, more traditional, home-oriented generation of young women coming on strong, the rate of married women in the labor force has gone up to record highs. There has been much talk about husbands doing more housework and nurturing. Progress has been made, but the burden of family and home still usually remains with women. I would be the last to argue against the proposition that ideas have consequences. In fact, the next chapter I will try my hand at a few that might. For a moment, however, not much has changed. It costs... Oh, another excuse for why the fertility rate is so low. It costs so much to raise a child these days. In fact, individuals earn more money by far than they used to. Accordingly, okay, but being in debt also comes up to that standard as well, Okay. Accordingly, there is more money available to raise a child than in earlier times in America. Certainly more than 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. There is a complex argument in 1970s. Per capita income went up substantially. Family income stayed about flat. For a variety of reasons, this author believes that the per capita income figure comes closer to reflecting the reality of that inflation-racked decade. And that, in fact, real income for real people increased. At worst, however, real income did not go down. More important, there is no serious statistical case to be made that fertility went down because income went down. As mentioned earlier, the drop in American fertility was much over by 1973. The huge drop came during the late 50s and early 60s, when real income, measured earlier by per capita or family income, went up. Moreover, as the final draft of this book is being written, America has been in an economic recovery for more than 4 years, one of the longest recoveries in recent years. If the economic determinists in the fertility argument are correct, fertility should have gone up, yet it stayed flat and low. And I bet you he freaked out when the economic crash of 2008 happened, right? Oh, well, that's not funny, just in terms of just the steps for putting the pedal on everybody's rights, jeez. So the dearth has not been caused by people having less real income to raise children. Something else was going on. In the old days, the new infant did not typically pull the mother out of the workforce. The mother wasn't typically in the workforce. Accordingly, income was not sacrificed. Why did I read that as that? Most mothers and fathers did not sacrifice either a vacation or a new word processor. in order to support a child or an additional child. But these days, due to second earners, those luxuries are available, and it is said that the sense of economic loss brought about by a child or an additional child many seem more acute. Result, if so, lower fertility. Environmentalism. A brief has grown up that too many people cause pollution, drain our resources, cause poverty, set our nerves on edge, and can heighten international pressures. Besides, it is said by some of the people who believe the above, why bring a baby into the world that will be blown up by a nuclear weapon? In my judgment, there is little evidence or logic to any of this. Thus, for one example, some of the most densely populated countries are the most environmentally advanced, like Switzerland. More people can cause pollution. More people can also reduce pollution. It's what people do. Now, how many there are? Wait, it's what people do, not how many there are, that counts. I guess that's true. Or whatever. All that notwithstanding, there is a powerful belief system that maintains that more people are a problem, and insofar as people believe it, and many do, it can surely create attitudes that would tend to lower fertility rates. Here is a list of factors discussed that tend to depress fertility. Alright. 1. Urbanization. 2. More education. 3. More income. 4. More working women. 5. More abortion due to legalization. 6. Better contraceptive techniques. 7. Delayed marriage. 8. Delay of birth and first child. 9. More divorce and increased fertility. Well, that's kind of weird because you're supposed to be talking about things besides the thing itself that depresses fertility, not an increase in infertility, which is just not saying anything. Okay. Increased spinsterhood, more open homosexuality, more open lesbianism, more living together, more women's liberation, and the perceived high cost of children, and environmentalism. So, yeah, global warming's just a myth in this dude's head, I bet. All for the sake of the economy and keeping it fresh, of course. These trends are apparent in the Western world and in the US. The net result is clear. There are plenty of reasons for young women these days not to have many children. And some of these trends probably have not yet run their course. Most critically, it is likely that the rate of the working woman will continue to go up in the years to come. What is the list of pro-fertility factors in the modern world? I could think of only 2. The infant mortality rate has dropped. In the US, it has dropped about half just since 1970, from about 20 per thousand to about 10 per thousand. But because the rate was so low to begin with, and because it can't go down much more, this can only have very slight statistical effect on increasing the number of persons who will survive to reach the age of production. There have been some stunning and heartening developments in the medical techniques to help infertile couples become fertile. So far, in the US, this has been involved relatively few people. About 1 million persons are now under treatment. But it could grow. The real cause of the birth dearth, however, is not the couples are unable to have one or more children, but they choose not to, because the vast majority of men and women are capable of reproduction. The statistical significance of these developments is not likely to be quite small. See pages 125 and 160. That's a long list pushing fertility down, and a very short one working in the other direction. Perhaps the best measure of future fertility is the Lifetime Births Expected series kept by the Census Bureau. This is the serious version of the author's thumbnail poll taken in Linden, Michigan, described at the beginning of this book. Back in 1967, among all currently married American women aged 18 to 34, the lifetime birth expectations rate was 3.52 children. By 1985, the birth expectation rate had fallen to 2.196 children. But consider first that the intention rate will surely be reduced at least somewhat when extrapolated to the entire female population, because it does not include unmarried women. Consider further that the intention data have generally proved to be somewhat higher than the ultimate reality of completed fertility. Some women don't find mates, and some who do find that they or their mates are infertile. Some women don't find mates, and some who do find that they or their mates are infertile. Okay, I read that fine. The intention rate today is near its all-time low. That yields a future TFR still under replacement. So, unless something changes, our Western population numbers will sink to lower growth, then to no growth, unobtrusively for the while, but then geometrically, with a momentum very difficult to halt, and then we will start losing population. Is there anything we can do about it? Alright, Chapter 11, Remedies. Monotonously, I say it again, this book is only speculation, based on fact and data and trends we know of them. Now, finally, all other things being equal, where does our speculation lead us in the 1990s, and then on into the early and middle decades of the next century? What does the world look like? First, we can observe a picture postcard Western Europe. It is a cutesy place, still lots of fun for tourists, full of old churches, old history and old people, a Disneyland display of the roots of Western culture. It's shrinking in population and power and economic muscle. It is becoming, in short, less and less relevant. We move next to an aging Japan, likely watching its economic miracle still fully bending under the strain of too many people and not enough worker bees to support them. What happens in Japan will likely be roughly what happens in the rest of the Western world, one degree or another. Only it may happen in Japan a little earlier, because Japan's birth dearth began earlier. Finally, we see the U.S. in somewhat better shape than the rest of our friends, perhaps putting off the day of actual population loss, but still moving into an aging no-growth mode, facing the same trends so apparent in the rest of the world, in the West, likely to be at least some economic strain, likely to continue as leader of the free world, but less and less able to influence global events because the free world is becoming less and less important. Wow, he had to say that again? Moreover, there will be some additional personal unhappiness due to less marriage and low fertility. Moreover, there will be some additional personal unhappiness due to less marriage and low fertility. Respectively, we will see that this did not occur surely as a matter of pure personal choice among young people. Much of it came through impersonal conditions that were built into our system, and almost mindlessly yielded personal decisions that brought about lots of adults with few or no children. The cartoon below tells a lot about our current situation. On page 132, called Flying Fish, there's this lady who's crying like this, with her hand in her face, and it says, "I can't believe I forgot to have children." I'm sorry if I'm not making fun of anybody, it's just, nobody forgets to have children. And, yeah, this dude attacks the economy a lot because the economy isn't working for the betterment of, the white demographic, I guess, since we're a little more nuanced and diverse. Oh, man. How much do you think these demographers hate the LGBT community? They must be rolling into their graves. Not just rolling in their graves, but like rolling in it, you know? Okay. Oh, sorry. It's too bad she forgot. Unless she or her counterparts in the decades to come, men and women, start remembering, all the nations now afflicted by the dearth birth will become grayer and grayer, smaller and smaller, and probably weaker and weaker. There are two things to be said about this vision of the future. It is speculative, and it is troubling. Suppose this speculation based on trends in motion, based on rates that may well deteriorate still further, is at least partially correct. Is there something that can be done about it? To think, I think we must, to begin, I think we must think seriously about it. Of course, one might say, don't worry, sooner or later it will change. It has to. Straight line geometric projections usually turn around, otherwise the nations of the West will simply disappear, and that just won't happen. Well, probably not. Almost certainly not, although I should report I've heard eminent demographers already talk about the certain nations of peoples going out of business. I've heard it said of Austria, I've heard it said of Latvia, I've mentioned the West German demographer who likes to visit the pandas in the zoos to see a species go extinct, looks like. Oh, yeah, the German demographer was saying that with a lower population of the demographic they want, their societies will look like zoos. So, does that sound like a dog whistle to you? Or because I I have a hard time in my heart avoiding that reality. Like, this book's been like pretty vicious the whole time, so I can't imagine that it's not pushing its punches, that it's not punching like that. But even if we dismiss any going out of business sale for the West, the situation is serious. The argument is heard. Don't worry, we're still growing some due to the echo effect of the baby boom. If we start going down, if it causes a problem, then we can change. No loss. Not likely. Demographics don't turn on a dime. Just as there is an echo effect of the baby boom, so will there be an echo effect of the birth dearth. As it arrives, it will be very difficult to issue a national command. Quote, attention all couples, have more babies immediately, or else. Why difficult? First, because democracies can't and shouldn't be in the coercion business, and second, because there won't be very many mothers around to effectuate the change, even if they wanted to. Don't plan on a quick demographic turnaround unless you can visualize millions of nice, well-educated working women turning in their attached cases and running shoes in order to stay home to bear 3 or 4 or 5 children. Depending on the country involved, that's roughly what it will take to prevent a Western population from declining once the decline begins. Dude, that is some dark shit. Holy crap.